What if the foods your grandparents once ate could land you in jail today? It sounds hard to believe, but that was the reality of the 1920s. Meals that once sustained every family are now considered toxic foods, banned by law and buried forever in the past. Here are 20 foods that are currently illegal, but were commonplace in the 1920s. In the early 20th century, a seemingly miraculous substance swept the market: radium. People believed this shimmering, glowing metal was not only an energy booster and beauty enhancer, but even a stimulant. The mystical glow of radium was seen as a symbol of advanced health and abundant vitality, attracting strong public attention. Radium-infused products were sold everywhere, not only in department stores, but also in drugstores as premium health supplements. From drinking water, most famously Radithor, a radium-infused drink heavily advertised as a cure for the dead to live again, to toothpaste, chocolate, and even butter, all had radium openly added. This was not a minor trend, but a booming industry built on blind faith in the benefits of radium. However, that belief led to horrific consequences. Prolonged exposure to radium caused serious ailments such as radiation sickness, anemia, and especially horrific jaw decay. The most famous case was Eben Byers, a wealthy and well-known businessman who died after drinking over 1,000 bottles of Radithor. Public health authorities had to intervene to prevent this tragedy from recurring, listing radium as a substance completely banned in food and beverages. Before anti-smoking campaigns and health warning labels, marketers devised another, somewhat stranger trick: reach them when they're young. That's how tobacco-infused candies reached the hands and mouths of children across America in the 1920s. These weren't just candies shaped like cigarettes. Some early versions actually contained traces of tobacco or nicotine flavoring. These candies were made from sugar, corn syrup, and flavoring powder, often with a chalky texture, and one end was dyed red to look like a burning cigarette tip. All were packaged to mimic real cigarettes, delighting children who would mimic adults puffing fake smoke. Many of your grandparents or parents probably still remember those white powder-coated gum sticks, where if you puffed or blew on them, white powder would fly out like cigarette smoke. It wasn't until the 1950s, when public health data began linking smoking to cancer, that a strong wave of national opposition emerged. It was based on undeniable scientific evidence of the harmful effects of smoking that tobacco candies were finally banned to protect public health, especially that of children. It's unimaginable if smoking were to be normalized, even for children someday. If today even a timid mouse scurrying by is enough to make an entire luxury apartment complex compensate its customers for emotional distress, back in the old days, people turned this rodent into a last resort protein source. Although not a common dish, in times of extreme famine, catching and cooking animals typically viewed with disgust, like rats, became a survival measure. Rat meat meals primarily originated from dire necessity rather than culinary experimentation or personal preference. Some chefs even tried to convince diners that the dish tasted almost like rabbit to alleviate their apprehension. When processed, rat meat could indeed lose more than half of its unpleasant odor, becoming a survival food during the desperate times of the Great Depression. However, health concerns quickly emerged and became the main reason for banning this dish. Urban rodents are well-known carriers of many dangerous pathogens, such as plague and leptospirosis. These dangers prompted health authorities to declare rat meat illegal and unsafe for consumption, permanently closing the possibility of roasted rat revival. Modern laws also strictly prohibit the consumption of rodents, classifying them as dangerous pests to human health. Have you ever experienced or heard of this dish? Please share your experience below. If rat meat sounds unfamiliar, what if even a common drink like milk was banned? In the 1920s, unprocessed raw milk was a staple, especially in rural communities. It was not only readily available, but also very affordable, often the only option for many American households. Back then, refrigerators were not common, so milk preservation was not widespread. People would usually milk cows directly, pour it straight into a glass, and drink it on the spot. In theory, raw milk was considered more nutritious, but in practice, it carried the potential to be a bacterial bomb. Raw milk was directly linked to dangerous diseases such as tuberculosis, brucellosis, and typhoid fever. The real turning point came with the booming urban population, which led to a demand for large-scale milk distribution, and with it, an increasing risk of contamination. Pasteurization was then introduced not for taste, but for human survival. Some people shared that only a fool would drink raw milk unless you personally knew the farmer and knew they kept their animals healthy and clean. After pasteurization laws were enacted, some competitors even cut costs by skipping certain hygiene standards because they could heat to kill germs. The permissible level of pathogens in milk even increased 20 times over what they believed was safe. Maintaining clean stalls, milking hygienically, immediate chilling, and sterilizing equipment was a long and meticulous process that not everyone could achieve with the limited technology of that era. By the mid-20th century, pasteurization became a mandatory standard across states, with laws gradually tightening, almost completely ending the sale of unprocessed raw milk. Hundreds of years before modern protein bars appeared in supermarkets, North American indigenous tribes created a survival superfood, pemmican, energy-rich, easy to carry, and able to be preserved for months. By the 1920s, that tradition was no longer exclusive to them. Settlers, trappers, and pioneers followed suit, making pemmican an essential lifeline in the harsh frontier, lands without refrigerators, where every calorie was as precious as gold. Pemmican is made from rendered fat, dried meat, often wild game such as bison, elk, or deer, and sometimes berries are added. The meat is dried by smoking or sun-drying, then pounded into a fine powder and mixed with melted fat. This mixture is pressed into cakes or solid blocks. When made correctly, pemmican can last for months, even years, without spoiling, becoming essential sustenance for hunters and families in remote areas. A handful could keep you active all day. Pemmican was an urgent and convenient energy solution, like eating a Snickers bar today, but modern health regulations don't see it that way. Today, traditional pemmican is illegal to sell in most U.S. states because it is made from uninspected wild game meat. The U.S. Department of Agriculture, USDA, restricts the sale of meat products not processed in certified facilities, regardless of how long that processing method has been tested over time. Hidden beneath linen napkins and centuries of controversy exists one of culinary history's most private dishes, the Ortolan Bunting. This tiny bird, barely larger than a thumb, was once revered as a masterpiece among French gourmands, and even found its way into luxurious American dinner parties in the early 20th century. Ortolan was not a dish of necessity. It was a symbol of pure and absolute indulgence. The traditional method of preparing ortolan was incredibly cruel and controversial. Birds were caught at night, then force-fed in darkness, and finally drowned in Armagnac, a type of brandy. Afterward, they were roasted whole and served intact, bones, beak, and all. Another peculiar detail was that diners would often cover their heads with a napkin while eating, supposedly to retain the aroma or to conceal the act, transforming the meal into a private and somewhat guilty ritual. However, the popularity of this dish led to serious consequences. Ortolan populations sharply declined due to overhunting and habitat loss. This prompted France, the country famous for this dish, to issue a commercial ban in 1999. The story of the Ortolan Bunting is a painful reminder of the environmental devastation that luxury foods can cause and the importance of protecting animal species from extinction for culinary purposes. Sea turtle meat, especially green sea turtle soup, was once considered a luxury item and a favorite among the elite in the 1920s. The meat was often stewed into a thick soup or stew, usually with sherry, vegetables, and spices. This dish not only appeared in luxury restaurants, but was also a diplomatic dish, served at presidential banquets and state dinners, symbolizing luxury and prestige. Highly valued for its rich, tender meat, sea turtle was considered a luxury item, not only in the United States, but across Europe. By the 1920s, commercial canning made this dish accessible to a wider audience, available for order through catalogs, further increasing demand. However, the excessive demand outstripped the supply. Overhunting and habitat loss pushed some sea turtle species to the brink of extinction. In response, international protection measures were enacted, prohibiting the harvesting or sale of sea turtles. This was an important effort to protect rare animals from permanent disappearance, contributing to a shift in awareness regarding environmental and wildlife conservation. A familiar dish once popular throughout the Midwest or at county fairs in Indiana also unfortunately made it onto this blacklist. Brain sandwiches, just the thought, makes many shudder. Instead of delicious lean meat, people used calf or pig brains, something many diners today wouldn't dare look at, let alone eat. But for previous generations, it was a matter of survival wisdom. My grandfather used to say, "When we butchered a steer, we used everything but the moo." The soft white brain was soaked, sliced, floured, and then dropped into a hot pan of oil, transforming into a golden, crispy crust around a rich, almost melting interior. In German-American communities, this dish was not a bizarre curiosity, but a true delicacy, a symbol of the waste not, want not culture. For them, brains were not gruesome. They were a culinary reward. However, concerns about bovine spongiform encephalopathy, also known as mad cow disease, in the 1990s completely changed the landscape. This disease causes severe brain damage, leading to tightened federal regulations and the strict limitation or prohibition of using brain tissue in human food. Despite being a dish with nutritional and historical value, for public health safety reasons, brain sandwiches had to give way to stricter regulations, becoming a part of culinary history. Which of the above dishes impressed you the most? Is there any dish you would like to try once? Absinthe, a vibrant green liquor, is often affectionately called the Green Fairy. It's not just a drink, but a complex ritual. The traditional preparation of absinthe is unique. Cold ice water is slowly dripped over a sugar cube, balanced on a slotted spoon, at which point the absinthe turns cloudy into an opaque white swirl, creating a mesmerizing visual display. Thujone, a chemical compound found in wormwood, a key ingredient in absinthe, is what caused much of the controversy surrounding this liquor. Absinthe was accused of causing hallucinations, insanity, and moral decay. A tragic event contributed to a global ban. A famous Swiss man blamed the liquor for murdering his entire family. Although science later proved that the hallucinogenic effects of Thujone were exaggerated, negative stories and prejudices were strong enough to lead to absinthe being banned in many countries, including the United States. It was not until recent years that absinthe was re-legalized in some places, but with stricter regulations on Thujone content, showing a balance between cultural preservation and public health protection. For meals in the 1920s, luxury was defined not only by perfectly cooked filet mignon or lobster, but also by small songbirds such as canaries, larks, and sparrows. These birds would be plucked, seasoned, fried, or roasted, then served whole, bones, beak, and all. In some regions, they were even quickly singed over a fire to remove feathers, then shallow fried until crispy. Diners would eat the entire bird in just a few bites. In certain circles, this experience was considered both culinary and cultural, a reminder of old world traditions. However, as bird populations began to decline severely and awareness of wildlife conservation grew, protective measures were introduced. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act of 1918 made it illegal to hunt or sell most native songbirds. This law was enacted to protect biodiversity and prevent the extinction of many bird species. Fried canaries and other songbirds disappeared from menus, becoming a reminder of changing human attitudes towards nature and the importance of conservation efforts. In the opulent banquets and wedding halls of the early 20th century, few dishes flaunted wealth and status as clearly as shark fin soup. Introduced from China and quickly appearing on the menus of luxury restaurants stretching from San Francisco to New York, this soup did not represent nutrition. It was a symbol of success and power. What's unique about this dish is that shark fin itself has almost no flavor. What it brings to the dish is its distinctive texture, along with a culinary tradition dating back centuries in Chinese imperial kitchens. The chewy, gelatinous texture of shark fin in a hot bowl of soup was considered a refined highlight sought by connoisseurs. However, the method of harvesting shark fins caused global outrage. Finning, the act of removing the fins and discarding the rest of the shark back into the sea, was considered brutal and wasteful. This practice led to a severe decline in global shark populations, threatening the balance of marine ecosystems. In response, many states and nations have issued bans on shark finning and the shark fin trade, aiming to protect shark species and maintain ocean biodiversity. In frontier communities, and even among clergy in the early 20th century, beaver tail was highly prized as a fatty, chewy, calorie-dense, and high-oil delicacy. This dish, not to be confused with the fried pastry of the same name, was a significant part of the diet for those living in wilderness areas. A unique and rather interesting detail is that French-Canadian Catholics even classified beaver tail as fish to allow its consumption during Lent. This fascinating loophole speaks volumes about its culinary significance and the clever interpretation of rules to suit circumstances. It shows the flexibility in culture and belief to utilize available food sources. However, overtrapping led to a sharp decline in beaver populations, pushing the species into critical status. Beaver tail became a focus of early conservation efforts, with trapping regulations tightened to protect beaver populations from extinction. Now, the consumption of beaver tail is rare and strictly controlled, a testament to the importance of wildlife conservation measures. When meat became a luxury and protein sources were scarce, Americans didn't always look to the farm. Sometimes they turned to the sea. In the early 20th century, whale meat began appearing in butcher shops and on menus, especially prominent during wartime rationing and economic downturns. Though more commonly associated with Nordic or Japanese tables, whale in America was accepted as an emergency solution: cheap, abundant, and fatty. It wasn't about delicacy, but sheer survival necessity that turned the ocean's giant into a substitute meat for an entire generation. Whale meat was often compared to beef, but it had a distinctive fishy aftertaste. During World War II, whale meat was even served in school cafeterias as whale burgers. This illustrates its popularity and role as an alternative protein source during difficult times. However, large-scale industrial whaling activities led to a severe decline in global whale populations, driving many species to the brink of extinction. In response, the U.S. Marine Mammal Protection Act of 1972 made it illegal to hunt, sell, or consume whale meat, with very few exceptions for indigenous communities for subsistence and traditional cultural purposes. In the 1920s, for many families living off the land in rural America, wild game meat was a regular item on the dinner table. It wasn't an exotic dish, but an ordinary dinner and a matter of survival during hard times, especially through the Great Depression. Animals like squirrels, raccoons, opossums, rabbits, and even bears could all become meals. The unique aspect of this food was the absence of USDA inspection or commercial processing. It relied entirely on what a rifle or a trap could yield. Our family grew up with the philosophy, if you can hunt it, catch it, raise it, or trap it, we'll eat it. From squirrels, raccoons, bears, fish, shrimp, rattlesnakes, deer, turkeys, pigs, goats, cows, all were dishes on the table. We lived off the woods, streams, and our giant garden, processing our own meat, vegetables, and fruits. It was a self-sufficient lifestyle. Although the source does not explicitly state specific prohibitions, it implies that modern food safety standards and strict USDA regulations have made uninspected wild game meat no longer a common or legal item for sale. These regulations aim to ensure that meat is processed under safe and hygienic conditions, preventing the spread of diseases from wild animals to humans. While it was an indispensable part of old rural life, today we rarely see uninspected wild game meat sold publicly. Lutefisk is a gelatinous dish made from dried white fish, usually cod. The preparation process for this dish is very unique and sometimes dangerous. The fish is rehydrated in water, then soaked in a lye solution until its texture resembles something between fish and jelly. The unique and also concerning aspect is that this process uses the same caustic chemical used in soap production. After the lye soak, the fish must be re-soaked in water, often for several days, to remove any remaining toxicity. If not done properly, lutefisk can become extremely dangerous. The problem arose when home cooks sometimes used industrial-grade lye without awareness of its potential dangers, leading to inconsistencies in food safety. Concerns about lye burns and chemical contamination led the FDA, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, to restrict the use of food-grade lye. Although lutefisk remains a traditional dish in some cultures, particularly Nordic ones, its preparation process has been more tightly controlled to ensure consumer safety. Also known as dinuguan, or black soup, pig's blood soup appeared on tables as a matter of economy and survival, making the most of the animal's blood. Our family always tried to use every part of the animal when butchering, wasting nothing. This soup is often prepared by simmering fresh pig's blood with vinegar, garlic, onions, and spices. The soup thickens when cooked and has a rich, rustic flavor, a taste of tradition and sufficiency from utilizing every resource. However, the biggest problem with blood is that it spoils quickly, and improper handling can lead to serious health risks. Food safety regulations have tightened, requiring blood to be collected, stored, and processed under strict conditions to ensure hygiene and prevent disease. These conditions cannot be met by many home kitchens, leading to the sale or serving of this dish becoming illegal in some states. Although still an important part of traditional cuisine in many parts of the world, in the U.S., pig's blood soup has had to comply with stricter regulations to protect public health. Haggis, a traditional Scottish dish, is a culinary icon made from minced sheep's liver, heart, and lung, mixed with oats, onions, and spices. This mixture is then stuffed into a sheep's stomach and boiled. Haggis is not just a dish, but a source of Scottish pride, a national treasure. For Scottish immigrants in America, this dish was celebrated to preserve their culinary heritage. However, the main issue that led to haggis being banned in the U.S. lies with the lung ingredient. According to USDA regulations issued in 1971, sheep lungs are prohibited for human consumption in the United States due to concerns about potential contamination during the slaughtering process. Although haggis is an integral part of Scottish cuisine and culture, and there is no clear evidence that sheep lungs are directly harmful if properly prepared, the USDA regulation strictly enforced the ban. This ban has caused much controversy and a desire for change from both food lovers and haggis producers. Nevertheless, haggis remains a dish with deep cultural significance, and those who love it in the U.S. still have to find ways to enjoy adjusted or legally imported versions. In the early 20th century, the American market was flooded with energy drinks promising wonders, including arsenic-infused energy drinks. Americans sipped on this drink, believing it could cure fatigue, give rosy complexions, and boost vitality. While it sounds like something out of a murder mystery, these tonics were widely sold and consumed without suspicion. At the time, arsenic was considered a therapeutic agent in small doses and was even prescribed by doctors to treat everything from anemia to syphilis. The problem was not immediate toxicity, but long-term exposure. Chronic ingestion of arsenic led to symptoms ranging from skin lesions and organ damage to cancer. By the 1940s, as science advanced and the cumulative harm of arsenic became better understood, public health authorities banned its use in consumer products. This shows a stark contrast to today, when manufacturers often know harmful substances exist, but still find ways to incorporate them into our products. The story of arsenic-infused energy drinks is a powerful reminder of the dangers of blindly trusting remedies lacking scientific verification. Another elixir once heavily advertised was strychnine energy drinks. It promised to energize the weary and stimulate nerves, bringing a new wave of vitality. What's astonishing is that strychnine is the same substance more commonly known as rat poison. However, in small doses, it was believed to have a stimulating effect on the nervous system. Strychnine was often advertised as nerve tonic or digestive bitter and diluted enough to avoid immediate poisoning. This is a classic example of how thin the line between medicine and poison once was. As medicine advanced, the risks of strychnine began to outweigh the perceived benefits. Even in very small doses, repeated exposure could cause muscle spasms, anxiety, and, in severe cases, respiratory failure. Ultimately, these dangers led to the removal of strychnine from consumer products, a critical decision to protect public health. Have these dishes shocked you enough? We still have many more strange and bizarre dishes from the 1920s. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any exciting content. Sassafras oil, with its distinctive spicy sweet flavor, was a key ingredient in beloved beverages in the 1920s, especially old-fashioned root beer. Sassafras oil was believed to purify the blood, cure colds, and promote general health, making it a popular choice for both its flavor and purported health benefits. Its unique taste set it apart and contributed to its widespread popularity. However, in the 1960s, researchers discovered that safrole, the main compound in sassafras oil, caused cancer at high doses, linked to liver cancer in laboratory animals. This discovery was a major shock, leading the FDA, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, to quickly ban the use of safrole in commercially produced foods and beverages. This ban completely changed the soft drink industry and eliminated a distinctive flavor of the past, all for consumer safety. Long before artificial flavors filled bakeries, elite gourmands once indulged in ingredients that would make you shudder. Most notable was ambergris, dubbed whale vomit, but actually originating from the colon of a sperm whale. It wasn't prized for its origin, but for its deep, musky aroma and subtle, earthy flavor. Ambergris was extremely rare, often found floating in the ocean or washed ashore, making it an incredibly expensive and exclusive ingredient. It was used sparingly to add to puddings, custards, and jellies, transforming dishes into something exquisite and luxurious, elevating cuisine to a new level. However, as whales became protected under international law, the trade and use of anything derived from them were also prohibited due to ethical and environmental concerns. Ambergris was removed from the list of legal food ingredients to protect endangered whale species. Although it is still used in the perfume industry, its use in cuisine has become a part of the past. In American kitchens of the 1920s, lard was a versatile and essential ingredient, used to deep fry everything from fried chicken to French fries. It was not only cheap and long-lasting, but also easily obtained from home-raised pigs. Our family grew up cooking with lard rendered from farm-raised pigs. Lard was considered Grandma's secret weapon, and the reason why biscuits and fried foods had a uniquely delicious flavor. It provided a crispness and flavor that was hard to replace. However, by the mid-20th century, health science began discovering that lard was high in saturated fat. The rise of vegetable shortening and concerns about heart disease pushed it out of mainstream kitchens. Interestingly, at the time, many people thought margarine was healthier than animal butter. Ultimately, many commercial lard products were hydrogenated, introducing trans fats, and those substances were later strictly regulated or banned. However, now perception has shifted again. Lard is now considered healthier than seed oils, as we learn more about cholesterol and the harmful effects of seed oils. Many believe that natural fats like lard, beef tallow, and coconut oil are healthier and provide better flavor in cooking. The story of lard is a testament to the continuous change in nutritional knowledge and how we perceive food. Looking back at this culinary journey, we can see how food has constantly changed over the decades, from survival foods to experimental delicacies, and sometimes even hidden dangers. Do you remember, or are you most impressed by any dish on this list? Is there any dish that makes you feel lucky it was banned? Please share your thoughts and memories in the comments below. And if this video brought back many interesting memories for you, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel to continue our nostalgic trips back in time.